Hi, welcome to Tay Tay Teaches. Whether you're here because you're one of my 10 subscribers, or you just happen to come across my channel by chance, or if you followed the link in my TikTok bio, I'm glad you're here. And I hope you're ready to learn a little bit with me and discover new things. About 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, I started a vlog. And there are some of those videos here on this channel, so you can go back and watch those. Lots of things have changed since then. I've gotten a new classroom. I'm still teaching the same grade. I've changed my classroom theme. You know, this year, 2020, has been absolutely crazy with coronavirus and all of us being cut off from our kiddos just so suddenly. And I've said goodbye to my kids. They're moving on to the middle school next year. I'm ready for this summer. First day of summer is today, Monday, June 1st, 2020. And there are a lot of things that I have planned for you this week. I plan on showing you my murder mystery that I created and kind of letting you know what I did, how I came up with it. I also am going to talk about my theme this year. I did a Gregor the Overlander theme for my classroom. I think this was the first year that I did Gregor the Overlander, and it went pretty well. I'll show you some of the things that I created and the different ways that we incorporated the series into our classroom. So I hope that you are ready to learn with me as we go through this week, and I hope you don't mind that I recorded this in black and white. I found out I could record with filters on my phone, so I got a little excited with that. So I really hope that you enjoy this. If you have suggestions, if you have questions, things that you want me to answer, especially if you are a student teacher, or you want to be a teacher, or you're a new teacher, those are things that I can help you with. I'm going into my 7th year of teaching, so I'm not a veteran by any means, but I am here to teach other teachers, help you learn, to learn new things from you. We're on this journey together, so I really hope that you watch my videos and we can learn together. So in this segment, I wanted to talk about my class theme this past year. We did Gregor the Overlander. The last 2 years, I did a Harry Potter theme. So if you go back to some of my older videos from 3 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long, you'll see different videos on how I made a 9 3/4 platform 9 3/4 wall, and I did a couple other different bulletin boards. I painted some jars for the kids to use. I also made our own banners for the table groups. So for Gregor the Overlander, it was something I just wanted to do something different. And I have read Gregor the Overlander as a series every single year since I started teaching 6th grade. I haven't read the entire series every year. I let the kids decide after the first book if they would like to pursue the entire series. And most of the time they say they do want to do the whole series. I have with me the last 2 books in the series. This is Gregor and the, can't read it, sorry. It says Gregor and the Marks of Secret. And then this one is Gregor and the Code of Claw. This is the last book. There's still a bookmark in it because I didn't get to finish it with my class because of e-learning. But there are 5 books in the series. And it's about a boy who's 11 years old, and he ends up falling in the laundry room grate down to this world called the Underland, and there are huge animals down there that talk, and he finds out that there are these prophecies that call for a warrior to help save their land, and it's assumed that he is this warrior. So you go through these different books, you meet different characters. It's a little gory, so definitely 5th grade and up for this. It's super good. It's written by Suzanne Collins, so I don't know if you could read that backwards, but Suzanne Collins, who also wrote The Hunger Games. These books were written before The Hunger Games. I think they're fantastic, and it's my absolute favorite series. I've read it multiple times, and you learn something new every single time you read. That's something I tell my students. Every time you read another book, even if you've read it over and over again, you learn something new each time. So it's really fantastic. So some of the things that I did for my Gregor room was one, I was like, okay, I want to make this look like we're in the Underland. Now in the Underland, there's no sun, so you can't see light unless it's a torch. So I went ahead and I was like, okay, let's buy this castle wall. And so I started and I was like, okay, we're going to get this castle wall paper. I thought it's going to be paper. And it came, and it was like a very flimsy, cheap plastic tablecloth you use for a birthday party. So I was like, well, all right, let's cut it into strips and we'll try to stick it on the wall, and I'll pop up a picture of what that looked like. So that that didn't work very well. It fell off the next day. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? How am I going to fix this? So I went ahead and I decided to cut them into squares, and I looked online and I found a way to make torches. So I made torches from tissue paper and construction paper, and I found a way to hook them on using sticky tack onto the squares. So I'll show you a couple pictures of that. And if I have a video of, I'm pretty sure I recorded myself working on some of these, so I'll go ahead and play a little bit of that for you. Okay, so I actually found this video of me walking into my classroom, and it's a very small room. This was after my first year being in there, so there's still Harry Potter stuff up. It's a carpeted classroom. It's the only carpeted classroom in the building. We got these new screens over here, and I'm heading back to my room, what the kids call the dungeon, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But it's this little library I had all set up. A bunch of things are on the tables right now. It's obviously not clean yet. This was the beginning of a new school year. And then I had a closet that I was able to fill with a lot of the things that I had for my room. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of storage. But this was before I took all my Harry Potter stuff down so that I could put my Gregor stuff up. Alright, so these are some bats I created to hang from the ceiling. One of the main characters in the Gregor series are bats, or they call flyers. I found a drawing and I doodled it, and I cut them out from something I made to trace with to make the torches. I'm about to show you. I used the orange tissue paper and I cut it into zigzags on the top. And I used yellow as well, cut it into zigzags, spooned it up into a cone, a black cone, and shoved it in to be my torch so that I could hang it up on the wall. The last thing I needed to do was make something to put the torch in, so I got brown construction paper. I looped that using staples and sticky tack. And then I stuck it in just like so and used sticky tack to put it on the wall. Of course, I put it on the castle paper as well. Okay, so then table groups. I had only 19 kids in my class. Started with 18, ended up with 19. So I had I made 5 really small table groups. And at first, they were just tables 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And by the time we got to like the middle of the year, I think it was, the kids were like, Mrs. Taylor, I want to do creatures from the Underland as table groups. And I'm like, okay. So I let them pick. So they went by flyers, spinners, crawlers, Underlanders. And then we like changed it the next quarter. They insisted that I call them by their table groups, by their names, instead of by their table numbers. So that's something we also did and that they enjoyed. They wanted me to have some sort of picture of the creature for their table group, but I hadn't done that. So I had bats hanging from the ceiling, and then I had the door. I have this new classroom I have. It's very small. It's the smallest one in the building, so it's kind of hard sometimes. But I have this little room that I made, my library, and from the first day that I had this classroom 2 years ago, one of my students on open house night saw it, and she started calling it a dungeon. So ever since then, everyone calls it the dungeon. And I was like, that's perfect because there's a dungeon in the story. So I went ahead and put bars on it and made it the dungeon. There are lots of things that I would like to do. I would like to add some different things this year, so that's something I'm going to research, but no one. And I tried finding another teacher who did a Gregor the Overlander classroom, and I could not find one. So if you have any suggestions, if you like Gregor the Overlander, if you know about this book and you have suggestions that I can use for next year, comment them down below. Let me know. I really would like to take your suggestions if you have any. So that was my Gregor class. Hey guys, now I'm going to show you how I did my murder mystery this year with my kids. I'm using a program called Loom. You can access it just by searching for it, and then you can actually put it into your Google Chrome bar up here at the top. And I used this during our distance learning to help kids with directions on how to get onto certain sites, which buttons to press, how to start a letter. I also opened a Google Doc, and then I was able to start a letter. The nice thing about Loom versus Screencastify, which I also have right up here, is that on Screencastify, there's only a 5-minute limit. And unfortunately, I am a big talker, so Loom is really nice because I do not have that restriction. So I'm going to show you a few things. Now, this is not perfected. It is not finished. If I were going to, say, put this on Teachers Pay Teachers, which is the plan in the future, then I would add more characters. I only had, at the time of this activity, I only had 18 kids in my class. So there are only 18 characters, but I do want to make it up to 25 characters. So what I basically did is I had to come up with, and I don't have it here, unfortunately, I do not have my brainstorm. But if you're going to make a murder mystery, and the reason I made my own is because I went on Teachers Pay Teachers, and I could not find any, even ones, and I was willing to pay. And usually I just get the free stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers. And I was willing to pay. But unfortunately, most of the things they had were for high school. I couldn't really find anything that would be really good for an elementary, like 5th or 6th grade. And I personally believe this one is great for 5th grade and up. Okay, so if you're struggling with that too, and you're like, I really want to do a murder mystery, this is what you can do. And why do I do a murder mystery in my class? Because we talk about text evidence, and we talk about making inferences. I mean, inferences is a big thing with these. It also helps kids collaborate. Now, unfortunately, this school year, I don't know if I'll be able to do something like this just because of all the CDC guidelines and our state's guidelines that just came out. But in the future, I'm hoping to be able to do something like this again. So basically what you have to do is you have to come up with a plot. So I had to brainstorm, okay, what is my idea here? What is the thing that happened? What was the problem? And then what was the solution? Who done it? So before I come up with characters and all that, I want to figure out what happened and who did it and why they did it. So once I found those 3 things, I was able to start just coming up with random character names. I even had a couple students give me some character names because I'm just not the most creative crayon in the box, okay? Not the most colorful. So then what I did was I came up with an entire sheet. I gave the description of the character. So here's Mrs. Brown. I'm not going to show you all of my characters. But basically there was a theft. So it's not really a murder. This one's not really a murder mystery because nobody was murdered. So I called it a crime mystery. But there was a theft in a hotel, and they have to figure out who stole it because there was also a kidnapping. So it says Mrs. Brown is the manager. You guys can read this. But anyway, so I gave a description of the character. I gave directions. The directions were the same for each one. Only reveal the clues allowed during each round. There are 3 rounds. So I did 1 round. They go around, they mingle with each other, they share clues, and then there's a worksheet I'll show you in a bit where they have to take notes about what the other person said that might be important. So when you give clues, you want to give some that are called red herrings. So a red herring is a clue that tries to point people in the wrong direction. So you want them to kind of think the wrong way. You don't want it to be too obvious, but you don't want too many red herrings so that nobody figures it out. The nice thing with this was I did have 4 kids in my class figure out who it was, but only 2 got the motive right as well. So you got round 1 clues, you've got your round 2 clues, which I made a little bit less, and I made them a little closer to the right thing. So I made not as strong clues for round 1, and I made stronger clues for round 2. Round 3, that's when they go in their separate ways. They look at the notes that they took, and they decide, okay, who do I think did it, and why did they do it? I did this throughout the day. So the way I did it was we kind of had like a party. So in the morning, and we still had school stuff too. So we did round 1, 15 minutes. They could mingle and do all that, and they could take their notes, and I gave them time for that. Then we did school stuff, and then a couple hours later, an hour later, we did round 2, and then the end of the day, we did round 3. They got snacks. We sat in a huge circle around the classroom, and we took turns saying who we think did it and why, and they ate snacks while they did that. So it was super fun. And I made one of these for each character. A week in advance, I printed these out, and I cut off this top portion here. So the kids only had the description for a week, and the description does not give away any clues. It gives you just a little bit about the character. So if they want to dress up, which I gave extra credit if they dressed up, if they want to dress up, they can, and they can prepare themselves to act it out. So it also kind of helps with kids who really like acting and theater. This kind of gets into their niche a little bit. Then the day of, they do not receive any of these clues until the day of, and they do not find out who done it until the day of. So that way they don't accidentally give it away the week before. Okay, so then I also made a worksheet for the day. So these are all the descriptions. Okay, and I'm not going to go through all these because if I do put it on Teachers Pay Teachers, I might want you to buy it. I don't want to give away who did it. Okay, so let me go back here. Here it is. Okay, so the kids had a worksheet, and it gave them the scenario, and I read it to the class, and I told them that, now it's your job to figure out who done it. And so they had to put their character name here, and then they had to put some of what they think their character traits are. They could use their description, or they could come up with their own and think, how would this person act? So it also kind of works on character traits if you're talking about that in your classroom as well. And then I just gave room for notes that they take for round 1, for round 2, and then round 3, I believe so-and-so committed the crime because, and then they have to give their why. So it also helps them support an answer with a reason, well, it's not really text evidence in this case, but with evidence, which is something that the kids really need to be able to do. Now, obviously, this is the first one my kids did, so some of them kept forgetting they were supposed to be taking notes. So it'd probably be a good idea to remind them as they go. And of course, I provided clipboards, and they had pencils, and they just had an overall blast with it. And at the end, we had an award for Best Actress, Best Sleuth, so person who figured it out the best, and then the Best Costume, to kind of just put a little fun in it. So if you do something like this, you can do it however you want. But this is my worksheet, and then I showed you my character lists and the clues. So this is something that I'm going to continue to work on and hopefully have it up on Teachers Pay Teachers, and when that happens, I will make sure to let everybody know in case you are interested. If you have any questions of things on the murder mystery that I did not cover, that you're curious about how I did certain things, go ahead and comment below and ask. All right, so that is this week's vlog. I hope you enjoyed some of the information that you learned this week. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, please comment down below. And if there is something that you want to see more of, I encourage you to like and subscribe. See you next week.